students, and welcome back to Mr. Sandwich Reads. You will notice I am no longer reading at home, though I still read at home, but I am now back in the building here at school. So I hope you are all doing well, that you're all safe and healthy, and enjoying the holiday season. We recently had our first snowfall, and now it has melted into mud. So I hope you're enjoying the mud. All right, when we last left off in Dom Joe Napoli's The King of Mulberry Street, it's been a little bit, and Dom was sleeping in a barrel. He had followed a man so he gets out of Ellis Island. I think it's the Red Cross is handing out like donuts and cider, donuts and apples, excuse me. And he takes some for himself. So just keeping track of what Dom is sustaining himself on. He's now had some a donut and apple, and he ends up he follows a man to Mulberry Street, and spends the night in a barrel. Okay, so that's when we left off. That was chapter 11, entitled Manhattan. We are now going to read chapter 12, Sharks and Mooks. All right. I also want to thank all of you. I see a lot of you are following along with me as we're reading this, so thank you if you're doing that. I hope you're enjoying. All right, let's jump in here. This is on page 85 if you're following along with me. Sharks and Mooks. I woke to the noise of horses on cobblestone streets. My neck hurt from being bent over my knees for hours. I stood and picked a chicken bone off my pants. It had jabbed my thigh all night, but I'd been too afraid of what it might be to touch it. Rain started, turning the gray alley stones to black. It was just a drizzle, and it felt good. I climbed out onto a log that rolled out from under me. I fell onto my bottom with a smack. I brushed off everywhere and rubbed my shoes with the underside of the front of my shirt. Then I raised my face to the rain, mouth open. The fat, slow drops soothed my cheeks and throat. A high-pitched tinkling came, so delicate I thought I was still dreaming. I followed it. A bony boy walked down the sidewalk, beating a metal triangle with a rod. Other people were out on the sidewalk already too, heads bowed under handkerchiefs and hats. Some carried umbrellas. Whenever the boy passed someone, he beat the triangle louder, then put out his hand. A man gave him a coin. He was nothing but a beggar. The beggar boy went slowly, so I had a chance to look around. Windows were open everywhere. People lived crowded together, as in Napoli, filling basements and garrets, as well as all the floors between. A man came out of an outhouse, and the way he stretched, I knew he'd spent the night there. I gritted my teeth. I wouldn't sleep in a barrel again. I wasn't a schignezo. By the time the beggar boy finally stopped on a corner, the rain had let up. Early sun glinted off the wet stones. Too bad I hadn't stood in one spot and drunk the rain while it was still coming down. My throat was dry. The beggar boy took a tin cup out of his pocket, put it on the ground, and played his triangle. Then he whistled a tune. Men dressed in fancy suits dropped in coins. "Hey," I said to him. He turned his back to me. He was pretty tall, but I bet he was only a year older than me. "Hey, can you tell me which way to the boats to Napoli?" "Bolivia," said the beggar boy. He pointed. Soon I was out on the wharves again, where a huge passenger ship was docked. Officials on the steerage deck processed the first and second class passengers. I walked around until I found two men talking Neapolitano while they laid bricks in a sidewalk. "Excuse me, do you know about the Bolivia?" The young man jerked his chin toward the dock. "That ship. Is it going to Napoli?" "It just came from there," said the other man. "No one cares where it's going next." "I do," the younger man said. "In Italy, the air is bella fresca, clear and cool. I'm going back as soon as I make enough money." "Yeah?" said the other man. "You'll take one whiff and you'll be on the next boat back to America, like every other fool who forgot what Italy's really like." "I'm going back to Italy," I said. The man wiped his mustache. "Get a load of this kid," he said to the younger man. "Talks like a big shot." "It's true," I said. "Don't let your mother hear you say that," said the younger man. You'll break her heart. My mother's in Italy. Where's your father? Said the other man. I didn't answer. You alone? Not for long, I said. I'm going to sneak onto that ship. You'll never make it, said the man. See the guards? And if you get caught trying, said the younger man, you'll wind up in an orphanage. Orphanages aren't as bad as the streets, said the other man. Remember that one that burned down? 6 kids died. A shopkeeper came outside and said something to the men in English. They got back to work. If my experience on the last passenger ship was typical, it would be a long time before the Bolivia was empty and I could sneak on. Days, probably. So I walked along the wharf toward the Statue of Liberty. A ferry crossed from Ellis Island. My eyes fixed on it. There was no one on board I could know. There was no one aboard I could know, no long-lost cousin. But I stood watching anyway. A man got off and went up to a policeman and asked him something. The policeman answered in English. The man got so flustered he pulled a piece of cigar from his pocket and fiddled with it. The policeman took out a match and lit the man's cigar. The man's face widened in a huge smile of surprise. I was smiling too. For this moment, it didn't matter that no one understood anyone else. A group of men came up to the policemen now. They said the same words over and over, till I found myself whispering them too. The English words, "Which way, Lester Brothers?" The policeman turned to the other passing men, and more people got consulted, and soon there was a crowd. An Italian said to another man, "Ignorant Irish, they want to make shoes at the Lester Brothers factory, and they don't even know it's way out in Binghamton, days away. Someone ought to tell them to go over to Chatham Square to earn the travel money to get to Binghamton." So the other man said, man, "You going to tell them? You going to help the Irish?" They laughed and went on. And just like that, I had my next plan. I'd work in Chatham Square till the Bolivia was empty and I could sneak on. But first, I had to get breakfast. Where were the American ladies who liked to help strangers? No one handed out food on this wharf. I went back up the street. It was busier now. Skinny children in rags hawked their wares. Their dirty hair was blonde or light brown, their faces red and snot-streaked. They had scabs and open sores on their elbows and knees. The beggar boy with the triangle stood on the same corner. "Have you got anything to eat?" I asked him. He turned away and whistled again, the same tune as before. Someone dropped a coin in his cup. What a stupid question. Maybe a night in a barrel had softened my brains. Okay, so there was no food sitting around for the taking. That meant a job came first, then breakfast. "Which way, Chatham Square?" I asked him, using the English I'd heard from the men who came off the ferry. My very first attempt. He spat on the ground in front of me. "Come on," I pleaded in Neapolitano. "I need to get to Chatham Square." "So what?" he said in English. I didn't understand, of course, and he knew that. After a bit, he said in Neapolitano, "Why?" "I need money." "You begging? With those fancy shoes?" He spat again. "Forget it. That area's taken, and the padrone in charge of those boys will whip you bloody if you move in." "I'm going to work, not beg," I said. "So what?" he said I said again in English. Then he shook his head. "You think I don't work? I stand here all day long. I have to bring in 80 cents or my padrone will beat me. Why don't you run away?" "He binds our wrists to the bedposts at night." I looked around. No one was watching this boy so far as I could see. "Why don't you run away right now?" So remember, the padrone were the quote-unquote uncles that at Ellis Island would claim the unclaimed or the orphaned children to do manual work, or in this case, they've sent this kid out begging for change. I imagine they're taking that money or a large portion of that money, and this boy is stuck working for this padrone. He binds our wrist to the bedpost at night. I looked around. No one was watching this boy so far as I could see. "Why don't you run away right now?" "Think you're so smart, do you? Where would I go? Anyway, I owe him money, and this is work. Decent work. There's no crime in being poor. That's the truth. Everyone I'd ever known was poor. But begging?" I didn't finish. "I make music. It's not the same as begging. I give people what they want to hear. What's the matter with you? You don't recognize Daisy Bell? The new song about the bicycle built for two? He whistled the tune again. Someone dropped a coin in his cup. He whistled another tune. Another person dropped in a coin. He gave me a self-satisfied look. That was after the ball was over. You don't know that one either, do you? It's the most popular song from Tin Pan Alley. His last three words were in English. What's Tin Pan Alley? 28th Street, where they write the songs. I shrugged. I've never been there. So what? He said in English. His mouth twitched. I've never been there either, but everyone knows the songs. I shrugged again. He pressed his lips together. It's okay. I wouldn't actually know about them myself if the woman downstairs didn't sing them half the night. You need money, huh? Tell you what. Give me those shoes to hold for you, and you can take my corner and play this triangle. As soon as you've got $1, I'll split the extra 20 cents with you, half and half. That was how I learned that $1 was 100 cents. No, I said. That's 10 cents each. I can count. You'd get the money fast. They always give more to smaller boys. And you're clean. You'd be done by afternoon. Me? Clean? No one would be appalled at how filthy I'd gotten. I won't take off my shoes. Then they won't give you nothing. You got to look poor. There's no way I'll beg. His cheeks flushed. You don't listen good. He spat. So what? He said in English. No one cares what you think. Which way Chatham Square? I said jokingly, trying to make up. Get out of here. You'd only get me in trouble with my padrone anyway, he pointed. Turn right at Park, and he went back to playing his triangle. Thanks, I said. He turned his back on me and whistled that second tune. I walked the way he'd pointed. At every corner I asked, Park? After several blocks, someone finally nodded yes. I looked at the street sign, P-A-R-K. That was how you spelled park. It was almost the same as how I'd have spelled those sounds in Italian. In the top right corner of the sign were the letters S-T. Could that be a word? Stands for street. I turned right. It wasn't long before I was passing all kinds of factories. They made silverware, jewelry, billiard tables. They made umbrellas, lightning rods, false teeth, paper, medicines, guns. I passed a piano factory and a carriage factory and one for ship propellers. I stood outside the windows and watched and listened. I heard so many languages, even one that sounded sort of like singing, out of the mouths of gaunt men wearing funny quilted jackets in a cigar factory, but no one spoke Italian. It didn't seem possible. I knew where Chatham Square was. I'd passed Mulberry Street to get here, so it was right at the bottom of the street where all the Italians lived. Where were the Italian workers? A boy stood on a corner with a tin cup on the ground. He played a small harp. I went up to him. Where are the factories that Italians work in? He turned his back to me. Red welts showed under the collar of his shirt. I stepped away in a hurry, praying his padrone hadn't seen me, that I hadn't gotten him in trouble. So some of these boys are being beaten. I hadn't gotten him in trouble. I hurried to Mulberry Street and went up the block, past the hanging sides of beef and pork in front of the butcher's, past the pharmacy, past the rat catcher who stood by a wall, holding out a string with dead rats attached by the tail. He was good. I hurried along, listening for someone I could talk to, anyone who could explain how I could earn money. And he appeared. The boy who had thrown the dog turd at me the night before. He stepped out of an alley into my path, legs planted. I told you to get out of here. I'm glad the policeman didn't catch you, I said. How'd you know about the policeman? I shrugged. I need to find a factory with Italian workers so I can earn money. That why you were in Chatham Square? How'd you know I was there? He crossed his arms on his chest. Even if you weren't a little squirt, you couldn't get a job there. Chatham Square factory managers don't hire from this neighborhood. They think they're too good for 5 points people. Italians can only work laying bricks or breaking stones or digging ditches. What are you talking about? You don't know anything, do you? The tough guy walked around me. Where'd you get those shoes? My mother bought them for me. Where's your mother? At home. Where's home? I shrugged. I bet you live in Brooklyn, And you got lost in the city, right? So now you want to do some piddling errands so you can make enough money to take the streetcar home? Or no, you live in the Bronx. That's it, right? The Italians in the Bronx make good. That's how your mama got money for those shoes, he smirked. That, or she works at home. Of course, she works at home, I said. She helps Aunt Sarah with laundry and mending. He laughed. You really know nothing. That's not what working at home means. You want to know how to get a job? He leaned toward me and beckoned with a curled finger. I stepped forward. Turn Irish, he whispered. Irish? How? He laughed again. You don't. You can't turn white just by wishing. Irish boys get all the bootblack jobs. They deliver all the newspapers. There's no way an Italian boy like you can get a penny without begging or stealing. And if you beg around here, the padrone will beat you to a pulp. They own every street corner worth begging on. And if you steal, you have to give half of everything to me. I don't steal, and I'd never beg. And why would I have to give you half anyway? So I wouldn't turn you in. That's how it works. My stomach hurt. I'm hungry. Who isn't? Give me your shoes, and I'll give you fare to the street for the streetcar. I knew what a streetcar was. They were building one in Milano, up in the north of Italy. Uncle Aurelio had talked about it. My shoes wouldn't fit you, I said. You think I'd want to wear them? I'd sell them in a second. If I wanted to ride a streetcar, I'd sell them myself, I said. You don't know how to sell them, said the boy. I do. I walked around him. I passed a shoemaker and a barber shop and a candy maker, and from each of their doorways I heard Italian. So that boy was wrong. Italians could get jobs, at least on Mulberry Street. A produce vendor was taking oranges from a bushel basket and arranging them in piles on a low table outside his shop. Want me to do that for you? I asked. He glanced at me. Go home. I stepped closer. It'll only cost you an orange. Didn't you hear me? Don't bother me. Don't bother my customers. He didn't speak Neapolitano, but I could understand him pretty well, and his tone wasn't mean, just wary. You've got better things to do, I said, and I can do it perfect. Perfect? He looked at me again, amused. I made a circle of my thumb and index finger and drew my hand across the air in front of my chest in the gesture that meant perfect. Was he almost smiling? I lifted my chin and looked straight into his eyes, hopeful. What do you know about stacking fruit, a little kid like you? If you don't like the job I do, you don't pay me. If I turn around and you run off with an orange in each hand, I'll come after you and make you sorry you were ever born. I don't steal. He pushed the bushel of oranges towards me. You get a tomato, not an orange, he said. So I stacked the oranges the way I stacked Nona's yarn balls at home. I was careful. Not a single orange rolled away. I imagined Nona watching me, saying some proverb, maybe the one about how the eye had to have its part in everything. That was why it was worth it to make even the smallest thing beautiful, even a plate of food that would be eaten in an instant. I stacked the oranges for Nona's sake. The man was standing behind me when I finished. Do these tomatoes and zucchini and the onions, and I'll give you 2 tomatoes. Do these tomatoes, oh, he's saying, do these tomatoes and the zucchini and the onion, and I'll give you 2 tomatoes. Amazed, I stacked them just right. Can I come back tomorrow? Sure, but it's Sunday. I'll be closed. Here. He handed me a bruised orange as well as 2 tomatoes. I wonder, do you know a widower named Tonino? The man shook his head. I put the food in my pocket and walked back to the mouth of the alley. I knew the tough guy would show up sooner or later. It was sooner. Before he could speak, I handed him a tomato my own mouth was watering to eat. That's right, he said, half of everything. I didn't steal them, I said, and I didn't give you one because you said I should. I gave you one because I wanted to. He looked me up and down. Then he leaned over and bit his tomato. Juice squirted out and landed on my shoe. Watch it. I pushed him away, squatted, and wiped off the mess with the hem of my shirt. When I stood again, he stuffed the rest of the tomato in his mouth and grinned as he chewed. I knew it. You would sell those shoes no matter what. What were they? A birthday present? You wouldn't sell those shoes no matter what. What were they, a birthday present? I ate my tomato. So why'd you want to give me a tomato then? I thought of how Nona had made me bring the bowl of meatballs to the Rossi family next door the night before I left home. You get, you give. Marjorie, what gave you such an idea? Look at you, the king of Mulberry Street, just giving things out right and left. Well, listen good. In this neighborhood, it's everybody for himself. Marjorie, I had to shut my eyes hard against the surge of longing. I could see Nona sitting at the kitchen table sighing Marjorie. I could smell her garlic hands, see the thick knobs of her knuckles. And now I realized I'd given this guy the tomato for another reason, too. Mama said survive. This guy could be an ally. As Nona's proverb went, Achi mi da pane yo o chiame pate. I'm sure I butchered that, so sorry. Anyone who feeds me is like a father to me. I took out the orange and peeled it. It smelled like flowers. The boy watched me closely. Before I had a chance to think, I gave him half and ate a section of my half. I gave him half and ate a section of my half. It tasted wonderful, juicy. He ate his orange fast. So you think you're a big guy because some jerk from Calabria paid you, huh? Big deal. Tomatoes cost next to nothing, and the orange was too bruised to sell. You still don't have your streetcar fare. I finished my part of the orange and licked my fingers. This guy was older than me, but he wasn't that tough. The way he devoured the food told me that. So he knows he's hungry too. He's struggling to survive. It's a good character detail. Really tough guys were never that hungry, not in Napoli. A bad guy would have simply knocked me down and stolen my shoes. I don't want money. I just want enough food to last me 2 days. 2 days? I'm supposed to put up with you for 2 days? My heart banged. I could stay with him. Yeah, where do you sleep? Whoa, you're not sleeping anywhere near me. And don't ask where I sleep. Look, I like being alone. There are gangs of boys around here, but they're always noticed, so they're always getting in trouble. I stay alone, and I don't stay in one place too long, so no one hassles me. The most I'll do is look out for you. But if you want my protection, you're going to have to show you're worth it. How? I said. In the next block, Pascal Cuneo runs a salami shop. Go do a chore for him and bring me back prosciutto, the raw kind. Prosciutto was pig meat. No. Remember, he's on a kosher diet. He doesn't want to touch pig meat. Doesn't want to be around pig meat. Don't make me mad, kid. That was the last thing I wanted to do. What's your name? I asked. What's yours? Dom. Mine's Gaetano. I can do lots of work, Gaetano, but not in a shop that sells pig meat. Why not? I shrugged. If you don't do what I say, you'll be alone. You can make it alone. You can't make it alone, not in 5 points. I was sick of being alone. It couldn't be that bad to be around pig meat, so long as I didn't eat it. I'll do it. I bet you will. You're lucky it's a slow day, or I wouldn't pay any attention to you at all. Understand? Yeah. Gaetano rubbed his mouth in thought. Okay, I got a better idea. On Park Street, there's a big store run by Luigi Pirano. He's got every kind of Italian food. He slapped me on the back. Go work for him and bring me 4 pennies. I wanted to ask him to show me a penny so I'd be sure to bring him what he wanted. But then he'd know I wasn't from the place he had said, the Bronx. I felt safer having him think I had a mother close by who might show up on a streetcar at any minute. I turned around and went back to Park Street. There were lots of stores with writing on the windows. None of them had the name Luigi Pirano, but one was bigger than most. I went in. Rows of shelves from floor to ceiling brimmed over the food. A line of bins held spices. I stood over the one with the seeds I knew so well, anise, and breathed deeply. Mama's scent. For an instant, the room swirled and my head went light. A woman clamped a hand around my upper arm and steadied me. She said something in English and then some Italian dialect. Are you ill? I smiled to reassure her. She walked on. A man behind the counter was making gigantic sandwiches. A card taped to the front of the counter read 25 cents. 25 cents? Was it a lot? Can I do a chore for you? I asked the sandwich maker. Get out of here. He didn't even look at me. His tone was final. I went outside. A crowd had gathered at the foot of the next street. I crossed Park and worked my way between the adults to the inside of the circle. An organ grinder played music, and a monkey on a chain took off his cap to people in the crowds. The woman beside me put a coin in the monkey's cap. The monkey's tiny, long fingers clasped around her thumb for a shake. She gasped. The monkey chattered, showing sharp teeth. His eyes darted around with a quick intelligence that made my stomach sick. He knew he was a prisoner, and he hated all these people. I could have sworn it. Everyone took out coins. They all wanted to shake the monkey's hand. I pushed my way back through the people, bursting free onto the street, and ran the path I'd already traveled twice that day, back toward the boy with the triangle. He was still on the corner. How much have you gotten? I asked. He turned his back to me. I moved around in front of him. I asked him how much I asked how much you've gotten. So what? Listen, Tin Pan Alley, I'll do it. I'll play the triangle. Tin Pan Alley put his hand in his pocket and counted the coins. 32 cents, he said. You have to make 68 more, then we'll split the last 20. Promise? I promise. I took off my shoes, then I suddenly clutched them to my chest. If you run off with my shoes, I'll catch you, I said. I'm fast. What do you think? Would you trust this? Would you give him the nice shoes? If you run off with my triangle, he said, my padrone will catch you. You can't hide from him. I don't steal, I said for the third time that morning. You think I do? Tin Pan Alley stiffened. I shook my head. He was too proud to steal. I handed him my shoes. He handed me the triangle. You smell like oranges. His face looked wistful for a moment. Play. I tapped the little metal rod against the triangle. Most people walked by quickly, not looking at me. But whenever someone looked, I smiled big, and more often than not, they dropped a coin in the tin cup. Tin Pan Alley sat with his back against the nearest lamppost and kept an eye out. If he saw his padrone coming, he was going to jump up, throw me my shoes, and grab the triangle. I was supposed to run as fast as I could, and if the padrone caught me, I was supposed to tell him I worked for someone else. No padrone would beat a boy who belonged to another. Instead, he'd take whatever I had and send me on my way with a warning. The very idea of his padrone made me queasy, but I didn't want to be alone again that night, and I didn't see any other way of getting 4 pennies for Gaetano. Every so often, Tin Pan Alley came over and emptied the tin cup. It had to stay close to empty or no one would give. People ate as they walked along. Ugly meat sticks that Tin Pan Alley called Wienerwursts, German food. Sometimes the meat was covered in a stinking rotten cabbage. And they ate sandwiches, much smaller than the ones back in the store on Park Street. The tomato and the orange half had made me hungrier. The sun was hot. The rumble of horses and carts hammered in my head. I felt woozy and smiled weakly at everyone, whether they looked at me or not. Tin Pan Alley jiggled his cup in my face. 98 cents already. You're good at this, and you don't even whistle. Usually it's slow on Saturdays. Saturday? It was Saturday? The Sabbath. Jews didn't work on the Sabbath. But I'd already arranged the fruit, and that was work, because the man had paid me. And fruit, not money, that's not really pay, that's not really work. And playing music, that wasn't really work either. It was entertainment, so long as I didn't pocket any of the money. I'm stopping, I said. You look sick, Tin Pan Alley counted out 9 coins. Here's your 9 cents. I shook my head. That's half of 18, said Tin Pan Alley, which is what's left over after I pay my padrone. I'm not cheating you. You'd have had to get a whole dollar to earn 10 cents. I told you I can count, I said. So you're trying to cheat me now, is that it? And I thought you were okay. Well, you can't have 10 cents. You can't cheat me. I'd never cheat you, I said. I keep a promise. Look, how about you do me a 4-cent favor? What's that mean? Asked Tin Pan Alley. Come with me to Mulberry Street to give a boy 4 cents. Why don't you give him 4 cents yourself? I can't. Why not? I don't want to tell you, because he doesn't know what the pennies look like. Tin Pan Alley looked at me with troubled eyes. Come on, Tin Pan Alley. If you do this, you get to keep my other 5 cents. Tin Pan Alley put the coins back in his pocket. Let's hurry. If my drone passes and finds I'm missing, he'll be mad. I thought of the welts on the neck of the boy who played the harp in Chatham Square. How often does he come by? I thought of the welts on, most days, not at all. Other days, he'll come a few times, but never early in the morning. Besides that, you can't predict. That why he keeps us honest. That way he keeps us honest. Mulberry isn't that close, I said. It'll take time. I know where Mulberry is. Look, let's not risk trouble with your padrone. Just keep the money. What, are you feeling sorry for me? Don't waste your time. I'm going to earn back what my padrone paid for my passage over, and then I'll find a regular job, and I'll send to Italy for my aunt and my cousins on Vico Sedil Capuano. Again, I'm sure I butchered that. We'll all have a good life. He started up the road. Vico Sedil Capuano. I knew that street. Tin Pan Alley's family was practically my neighbor. What had happened to his parents? Come on, he called to me. A deal's a deal. You think you're the only person in the world who can keep a promise? We went to Mulberry Street, to the alley where Gaetano had shown up before, and waited. You got the 4 cents? I turned around. Gaetano stood there. Tin Pan Alley put 4 cents in Gaetano's hand. Wait a minute, said Gaetano. I've got a treat in mind, and it's 4 cents just for the two of us. I'm not paying for this, mook. I don't take nothing from no shark, said Tin Pan Alley. I didn't know what a mook or a shark was, but I could tell they were insults. Tin Pan Alley, I said quickly. Meet Gaetano. He's my friend. Gaetano, meet Tin Pan Alley. He keeps his promise. Oh, another good boy like you, said Gaetano. A beggar, huh? Tin Pan Alley spat on the ground. I moved between them. He's a musician. A musician? Not a beggar? Just like a skinny musician. Just a really skinny musician. Gaetano blew through his lips, making a hoarse noise. Pfft. Well, come on then. He walked and talked, pointing as we went. This is Baxter Street. Lots of people from Napoli live here, like on Mulberry and Mott Street, but the people from Geneva live here too, and the best ice cream vendor in all of 5 Points is here. He led us past grocery stores with wooden barrels of dried fish, delicious bacala, and up to the ice cream vendor. He put the 4 pennies in the man's hand. It's a penny a serving, the man said in his dialect. You want 3 extra large servings for 4 cents? No, 2 doubles, said Gaetano, talking in the same dialect the ice cream vendor set used. For me and the little squirt. He jerked his elbow toward me. Nothing for the mook. 1 double, I said, and 2 regulars. The ice cream vendor raised his eyebrows at Gaetano. Gaetano gave me a look of disgust. I had a big lunch, but I guess I can stuff down a triple serving, he said to the man. Give the squirt 1 regular serving then. The man took out a bit of brown paper and put a dab of ice cream on it and handed it to me. He gave 3 dabs of Gaetano. I wonder when ice cream cones were invented. Makes me wonder. What Gaetano had done was lousy. I ate half the ice cream as slowly as I could. It was creamy and cold and not nearly enough. You could buy a serving, I said to Tin Pan Alley. He had 14 extra pennies in his pocket. After all, his 9 and my 5. It's not your business what I buy or don't buy, said Tin Pan Alley. There must have been days when he didn't take in 80 cents, when extra money saved from a good day could spare him a beating. I handed the paper to Tin Pan Alley. He ate the rest of the ice cream in 1 bite and licked the paper clean. Then he turned and walked down Baxter toward Park. Bye, I called. In answer, he looked back over his shoulder at me. Where'd you pick him up? Asked Gaetano. I shrugged. What's a mook? An idiot. He's not an idiot. He's got a padrone, doesn't he? Asked Gaetano. Any kid who's owned by a padrone is an idiot. If you weren't one to start, you become one fast. What's a shark? A boss. It can't mean just that, I said. A boss isn't something bad, but a shark is. Depends on how you look at it. A shark sees what there is for the taking and takes it. Sharks are smart. Gaetano pointed at the doors we passed. That watchmaker, he's a banker on the side. He takes in Italians' money and saves it for them until they've got enough to send for relatives back home, or for the really stupid ones until they think they've made their fortune and decide to go back to Italy. But in the meantime, he gives them nothing, not a cent, and he has their money to use however he wants. He can spend it to start a business of his own, or he can lend it to immigrants who want to start a business. None of the real banks will lend them money, but a shark will. He does nothing. He just sits there and makes money off the hard work of the people who he lends to. And he makes money off the savings of other people, see? That's a smart shark. He pointed. That wine store, it's the Banca Italiana. It has no license, nothing. The owner did nothing but say he was running a bank, and people gave him their money. That's what I'm going to do when I get it all together. I'll open a bank. And who's going to trust you with their money? I said. You, and the mooks like you. I'm not a mook. Oh, right, you're a king. The way you gave Tin Pan Alley the rest of your ice cream. Listen, mook, half-wits like you can't protect yourselves. It's either give me your money or get robbed on the street. Gaetano tilted his head at me. You keep surprising me, Dom. You know less than the Baxter monkeys. I saw a monkey today, I said. You like monkeys? That figures. Come on. Gaetano swaggered up the street like a big man, a shark, and I followed him like a mook. He stopped mid-block. Here it is, the most famous monkey training school in the city. A smart monkey goes for $30. He grinned at me. You'd go for maybe 20. There were curtains over the windows, so I couldn't see inside, thankfully, but I could hear monkeys chatter from within, and I heard something else, too. Snaps. A whip? It was right then that my stomach cramped. I doubled over. Gaetano laughed. The price of ice cream, he said. The Genoveso are pigs. They are dirty ingredients. They use dirty ingredients in dirty mixing bowls, and they make dirty ice cream. But it tastes the best. If you stick around long enough, your guts will get used to it. So he's sick from too much ice cream. Dirty ice cream. What do you think? Do you think Dom is a mook? Do you think he's got the survival skills he needs to make it back to Italy, to survive like Mama told him to? Do you trust Gaetano? Do you trust Tin Pan Alley? We're sort of meeting some new characters here. So stay tuned. He's after spending the night in the barrel, is he doing better or worse? I mean, he's had something to eat. He had some ice cream. He's made a little bit of money. He was able to get 2 tomatoes and an orange for stacking. So keep following along. That was chapter 12. I hope you enjoyed. All right, take it easy, students. Peace.